You've entered Bookstorm. Your favorite authors are here to dive down deep into their best-selling books. Stay tuned to brave the storm.
Welcome back to BOOKSTORM Podcast, listeners. I'm your host, Kristen Civiletto, and we're so excited you're tuning in from 106 countries and territories, all 50 states. And we know why. It's because we are bringing you the very best authors out there. And today we are just so thrilled because we are welcoming back a #1 New York Times bestselling author, and that is Ashley Elston. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we are too, because first of all, your first book was a #1 seller on the New York Times list, of course. But I have never forgotten that book because you were always playing with these deep themes of identity. And we're going to talk about that today, I know. But your books are awesome because they're entertaining, they're deep, you're thinking about these things, and then you keep thinking about them after you finish the book. And that's pretty cool.
I love that. Like, that's literally the nicest thing you could say, because that's what you hope for. You hope that it leaves an impression, good or bad, I guess, but an impression, it's something. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, I want to tell our listeners just a little bit about your background. I love the fact that for many years you had another career, and that was as a wedding photographer. And I was thinking that's a really good opportunity to study people. Is it
Oh my gosh, it really is. And I don't know that I would have thought in my early writing days how much photography would have helped writing. But looking back, I mean, all you do for at weddings is you watch people. I'm like, where's the bride? Where's the groom? Like, is there something happening that I need to take a photo of? And so you're just kind of constantly aware of what's happening, but you're looking at the room, you're looking at the light, you're looking at the staging. And so it really was a great precursor for writing. I just would not have thought.
Yeah. And it's also evident in your stories because they're very immersive and visual. Like you feel like you are in that place. And that must be your photographer artist eye.
I do. I mean, you build a photograph with the lighting in the background, and the subject is everything framed right. And then you build a wedding album, like you're showing the day and, the beginning to the end, and, lots of pictures on the important part, a few on the other parts that you need, but aren't as important. It is the same, building a scene, building a story, building a book. It really is hand in hand.
Yeah. I love it. Well, it's another dimension to a psychological thriller that, we don't always necessarily get. A lot of times there's that focus on the plot and the twists. So I think that's pretty neat. And your first book, by the way, was a Reese's Book Club pick. Like we said, it went to #1, translated into 30 languages. And now this one that we're here to talk about is called Anatomy of an Alibi. I'm going to hold up this really cool cover right here.
I love the color. The colors, they did such a good job.
Yeah.
So thrilled with it.
They sure did, because it captures both the intrigue and the fact that we've got two women who are having to not match wits necessarily, but really put it all on the line with their smarts, their ability to orchestrate things. So I want to just talk about two comments of your book, because one of them is from one of our favorite authors who comes on our show frequently, and that is Mary Kubica. She said, "You don't know who to trust in this taut and expertly plotted thriller from Ashley Elston. First Lie Wins is an edge of your seat read that's as emotionally moving as it is gripping. I loved every minute of it." I thought that was really, really a nice endorsement.
That somebody like her says that about my book. I mean, my cheeks are going to hurt from smiling so hard. She was very kind to read it early, and just even sweet to just give me any words, but especially those.
Yeah. Amazing. I think that's pretty cool too. Yeah. Well, I thought I'd give our listeners just a little bit of the background of what's going on in the story. And I'm going to not give away any spoilers, which is a little bit tricky. So bear with me, people. And I'll let you fill in any details that you think we really need. But first of all, we have kind of an identity switch up right up front in the story. And again, you love playing with this, idea of identity, both that internal and external. So we see it right out of the gate with this one. So we meet someone who, we believe might be Camille Bayliss. She's dressed in designer heels. She's drinking a fancy martini. She starts flirting with a guy at a bar, but then she heads out of town pretty quick. Yes. That woman was not really Camille Bayless. It was
It
a
was.
woman named Aubrey Price.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is this woman is highly motivated to kind of get some details and facts about a family tragedy that had befallen her family many years before. Now, Camille herself is in another area a
Mhm.
ways away.
Mhm.
She's playing the part of Aubrey. And for 12 hours, these women assumed each other's identity for a very specific purpose. Let's talk about Camille for a second.
Yes.
She appears in the outside to have a picture perfect life, right?
Mhm.
She's married to
Not at
Ben,
all. Mhm.
who's an attorney, beautiful
Yeah.
home, beautiful clothes, you name it. But Camille is very convinced that there is a secret that her husband has been hiding, or many more secrets. And she is very stressed because she cannot find out what is going on. She can't get to the bottom of it. And he keeps pretty close tabs on her. And that's one of the reasons. So the women who meet through an interesting turn of events that I won't go into, they devise a plan. And that is where they switch identities for these 12 hours. So
Yeah.
Camille is going to take a look at what Ben's doing, and
Mhm.
Aubrey is going to take Camille's place. However, things don't, of course, go
They
according
don't.
to plan.
It's sort of what, the best laid plans.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
And what was so interesting about these two characters were they're strangers
Yes.
and from very, very different worlds, but have this one thing in common, which is Ben, and have to really rely on the other. They're both in very vulnerable situations, but both have a lot to gain, a lot to lose, and you really just have to trust this stranger.
Yeah.
And that was so fun to play with. It was so fun
Yeah.
to work with.
Oh, I could tell. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that by the end of the 12 hours in the morning, there is a crime. And
I
is
mean,
it
no,
okay
yeah,
if I say?
Ben is dead. Ben's dead
Okay.
like early in the book. I think it's
Okay.
even on the back of the
It
book.
is.
It's not a spoiler. Yeah, Ben is dead. It is just who killed him, and I loved playing with the idea of your alibi and what
Yes.
is an alibi, what makes it strong, what makes it weak, and what if one of you has a great one and the other one doesn't,
Yeah.
and that's sort of where they find themselves in,
Yeah.
not in a good
It's
place.
not in a good place because both women kind of need an alibi for this
Mhm.
situation.
They do.
So, all right, well, let's kind of jump in there where you just left off because this was something I was thinking about throughout the whole story. Our two women, Camille and Aubrey, and even others,
Mhm.
had to keep secrets. They vowed to keep secrets
Mhm.
until they didn't.
Yes.
And, everybody had to kind of weigh what their priorities were. And so
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about that gray area. Do you think that, first of all, everybody has a price? And, does it come down to money or
I mean,
maybe a
I
loved one
don't
being in danger?
I don't know if everybody has, I think everybody has a line, right? What
Yeah.
line will I cross, and what will make me cross a line I think I won't cross, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
it is money, but sometimes it is in the protection of someone you love. Like I wouldn't do that for me, but if it saves you, I will cross that line. And so it really, I think, depends on the person, the line, the stakes, and all these people are in very different places of where that line is, what their own morality about that line is, and yeah, I mean, nobody's really great in this book, and nobody is true. Maybe somebody's truly terrible, maybe a few, but they're all very gray. They all have a lot to lose. Yeah, it's one of those kind of hard to talk about without spoiling it, but it was.
Yeah.
Um, it's fun to push where is that line? Like what would I do to save myself? What would I do to save my loved one? What would I do to get ahead? And
Yes.
everybody is a little different there.
Oh my gosh. And as a reader, that's what you're thinking about through a lot of this book is, you're like, don't say that, or you need to spill that secret. This is what I'm thinking in my head. But I did keep thinking, what would be my line? Is it money?
Mhm.
Is it somebody imperiled? I don't know.
Power, is it prestige? Is it,
Yeah. Yeah.
safety and comfort, and
Yeah.
you have one that's come from a background of wealth and one that's fighting tooth and nail just to pay the bills. They have very different motivations because
Yeah.
of their backgrounds.
Absolutely.
and what they're willing to risk and what they're not. And, where one may say, okay, well, you might lose some money. I've never had it. And the others, I can't imagine living without it. I mean, so, those become very different things.
Sure. Well, I want to press in on that a little bit more because there was another character who realized that perhaps his life was nearing an end
Mhm.
and he finds faith and he decides that he has to make things right and start spilling some of these secrets.
Right.
What is it about an impending death that really brings out this desire to want to make things right?
Well, I think anybody faced with I mean, we're all facing death, right? But when you have like a date, when you have an expected, like you have a couple of months to live, I think everything becomes a little bit clearer in what might have been okay in this life may not get me to the next one that I want, right? And
Yeah.
then it is like, well, let me make sure my next life, what's happening to me in the afterlife is good, right? And so what do I need to do in this life in a way that in a pressure and a timing that is expedited, I guess. It's sort of like holding up the ticking time bomb of I might want to get straight with
Yeah.
God, my faith, with everything before I cross over. And then you're like, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? What will I do
Yeah.
with that?
Well, it's interesting too, because, if you're a person who believes that you just fade to black and there's nothing there, then maybe you might be inclined to keep a secret or to lie. But if there's even a shadow of a doubt in your mind that things need to be made right so you can die with a clean conscience,
Yes.
then I think that's where there's kind of a whole nother level of, not only pressure, but
Mhm.
also reliability.
Mhm.
And that's why in the law we have the hearsay exception of a dying declaration, right? Because we tend to believe that people tend to tell the truth when they are dying.
Mm-hmm. And that's what one of these characters is, he is spilling some tea, spilling the beans, because he's a little bit worried about his afterlife situation. And that's really sort of the kind of the crux of what really this whole thing got going.
Yeah. Yeah, very intriguing. Um, this book, first of all, has a lot to say about power as well. We've been talking about identity and motivations and gray areas, but power, especially the kind that operates in darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a simmering theme, underlying the entire story. Now, again, I don't want to give anything away, but what do you think was at the root of all this evil that was going on in darkness? Do you think
Well,
it was money?
I think it's money. I think it's power. I think it's control. Some of these people love control, want to have it over the people that are closest to them. You have two different types of criminals in my mind going on in this book. You have the very rich and powerful that it's not kind of out there, but everybody is aware that if you are to a certain level and you have the connections and you have a lot of money, then that comes with that some power. But
Yeah.
then there's the other side of one of the characters is living in a house full of criminals, right? And they have their own sort of power that is not quite as obvious. And so it was fun too to sort of play those two different types of not only criminals but power against each other, and which one has the most.
Yeah. It was almost like a class distinction too, because we see one class clinging to power that seems to be waning as
Mhm.
things are changing in the world and equalizing, even in the criminal world.
Right.
And so I thought that was kind of a cool aspect to the story as well.
Yeah. This was really like two very different sides
Yeah.
forced into the same situation. And it was really, I'm not gonna lie, this was a challenging book to write because it's a very complicated plot. And it
Yeah.
took me a lot of drafts. I mean, a lot of drafts to decide how to tell the story the right way
Yeah.
and from which point of views. And it started with just one. And then I added the other. So I then added two women. And I was like, okay, well, I've got to have somebody on the other side that's looking from the outside in. And so then comes Hank. And so that was a challenge. The timeline was a challenge, showing things, you have your main day where this
Yeah.
alibi is given, and then you have the things before that and the things after that. And when do those sides come out, and how do they come out, and how do you keep that reader plugged into the timeline, so they don't feel like they're just adrift and like, I don't know what day it is. Is this before or after? And so it was that it was a very challenging book to write in that sense. It was also a very challenging book to write a follow-up to First Lie Wins. I mean, First Lie Wins was my 7th book, but by far the biggest book I've ever had. And with that came expectations, a lot of those self-inflicted. A lot of it was in my head. How do you write a follow-up to something that hit number 1? I mean, like, that's a lot of pressure that I put on myself. And so, I had it was a lot going on. And then I had, so it was challenging, but so rewarding when I finally got it all in my mind to click, and it all fit the way I wanted it to fit. And we finally got to the end, and I have to say it was very rewarding. But I'm very proud of it. It was very challenging. So,
well, it was very seamless.
Well,
so even when you went back and forth and timelines, the reader was able to track. You were right there with what was going on.
Right.
And it is tight. I mean, you're right. It's a complicated plot, but that's, I think, what people enjoy about your writing.
I hope so. I mean, this was okay. Well, let's see how this one goes. When you're
I think it's going to do great.
When your team reads it and rereads it and rereads it, we're all like, are we in a bubble? I mean, is this working? Or are we just so, we're so in this bubble with it. So it's been, so far so good. It's been, mostly well received. And so I'm sigh of relief, honestly, that it's hitting the way that we wanted it to hit.
Well, there are some lighter moments in the book. I mean, we're talking about all this heavy duty stuff with power and lies and identity. But one of the themes that I thought was really cool is this idea of found family as opposed to the family you come from. So we had Aubrey, who lived in a home with, people who might have not necessarily been on the right side of the law, but most of them were devoted to one another and helped one another when needed. But then in contrast, we have Camille, and her family is very wealthy, controlled by a very domineering, narcissistic patriarch. And we see Camille and others striving to get away from their family.
Right.
And so I wanted to ask you if this whole idea of being away or close-knit together in a house, and even the house that's on the pictured on the cover, I thought kind of reinforced this. Were you kind of looking at that idea of clustered together, found family, getting away from the other?
Yeah, again, it was like at the two separate sides, and you think, gosh, if I could just have this great, family. But what if your family's not great? Well, you can still find a family. I mean, it was playing with the two sides, and even Camille, whose family is a little bit hard to be a part of, there was still, she has a good relationship with a sibling, and even though he's a bit, gosh, it's hard to talk about this without spoiling.
I know.
Own issues, right?
Say no more.
So and then even in the house where Aubrey is, they're all kind of criminals too, a little shady, all struggling, but they're there for her in a way that sometimes your real family's not. And again, it was just really trying to play with all the different ways what a family looks like, and how they work in a really stressful moment when things feel like they could crack, right?
And also where there's that undercurrent of distrust, and you feel that element of uncertainty, especially for Camille. She's in a marriage, she feels like there's something wrong, she can't put her finger on it, and it consumes her.
Yes. It does. And she realizes that she is one of the few members of her family that doesn't really know what's going on. And that just makes it all worse. And so, hers may be a bigger struggle, I think, because she's coming in pretty blind. Whereas, Aubrey, she's always known what, the hardships that she's had and why she's had them and everything. So,
Yeah, for sure.
But
That's
Camille
really cool.
looks on the outside like she's the one you'd want to be, right? And she's, I don't know. It was fun. It was fun to play around.
Yeah. Well, I think this book is going to be a lot of fun for readers because, again, they're always going to be thinking that they can try to solve this and figure out what's going on. But there's so many good twists in this story. It is entertaining. And we're highly recommending it to our
Well, thank you
listeners.
so much.
And
I
now,
just makes me, you have no idea. I'm telling you, this book was like, I don't know, 2 years of just really like, digging into it and redoing it and digging back into it. So it's just so nice to hear that
yeah.
you enjoyed it.
Oh my gosh, thoroughly. Now, before we let you go, I was wondering if you could maybe give us a little clue about what you're working on next. And I know it's hard to say anything specific because we don't want to give anything away, but
Yeah, I took a little bit of a break when I finished. I think we finished Anatomy, kind of really tied the bow on it back in the summer, and I was like, oh gosh, that might be it. I mean, you feel like my well is empty. I don't know if I have anything else in me after that one. But so I'm just now sort of like, okay, maybe there's another story in me, and I have a few ideas. I'm kind of playing around with them, trying to flesh it out a little bit. So nothing noteworthy to say right now, other than I've got something kind of fun I think I'm working with, but still super early days for it, and still trying to figure out what it is, which is a lot of it is like, what am I trying to say? What is the story? What am I trying to do with this story? Because I feel like First Law Wins, like you said, it had a big idea. It had a big theme of identity. Obviously, that was a lot of interest in Anatomy as well, but a little bit more of family and corruption, and so now I'm back to like, I like to know what am I trying to say? What is my theme? And that's kind of where I am on this new idea, and so that's trying to work its way out. So, but I'm excited. Sure. I mean, it's enough to where I'm like, okay, all right, maybe I do have another book in me. So.
We sure hope so.
I wasn't sure about that a couple months ago because I'd finished this one. I was like, whoa, that might be it. But,
I say that every day with my job, where it's just it's a big thing to get something out and done. It's almost like having kids. You think I'm never going through that again, but then you do like 5 more times.
Got to get a little bit of ways from like the last months of pregnancy and that delivery. Right. You're like, I'll never do it again. And then you're holding them. You're like, but he's so cute.
You're right.
Yeah, that's fine. I can do this again. It's very, very much like that. Very
I love it. Oh, I love it. Well, we hope that you come back to the show in the future. And I'll tell our listeners how to connect with you. You have a great website. It's ASHLEYELSTON.com. You're on Facebook, Instagram, and I wish you all the best because this is wonderful. And we are just thoroughly entertained by your books. We love them.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. I just really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome. Listeners, what a fantastic discussion with Ashley Elston. She is always so interesting because her books are just going deep with the cool themes that she's playing with in these psychological thrillers. And I loved this one, Anatomy of an Alibi. All right, we've got people coming up. We have Lynn Cullen with When We Were Brilliant, Liza Palmer, Young Fools, Brad Meltzer, The Viper, James Crepando, The Right to Remain, Allison Brennan, Brooke Fast, Caitlin Rother, Robert Dugoni, Kate White, so many more authors. We're just thrilled that they're coming back again and again to the show. And that's because you're listening, you're tuning in, and we love it. You're all over the world. We're so grateful. You know where to find us, BOOKSTORMPodcast.com. We are on X, we are on YouTube. Tune in because you can see these authors, but we know why you're coming back again and again. It's because your favorite authors are here. They're on the show and they're talking about the deep themes underlying their books. So stay tuned.